Chapter number 1. Who am I? And why does this topic matter? I'm not making this case as a player. Players have opinions, players have feelings, players have deck preferences and pet combos, and that one commander they will defend to the death, even though it wins maybe like 1 in 8 games. I'm making this case as a game designer. I've spent years designing games, and the thing I keep coming back to, the thing that is genuinely the hardest problem in all of game design, is balance. Not just balance in the sense of this card is too strong, balance in a deeper sense. Is this game fun for one person, or is it fun for every single person at the table? This is what balance means, okay? Balance means that we are balancing a game so that people have an equal amount of fun and an equal amount of interest in the game. Because that distinction, individual fun versus shared fun, that is what separates great social games from expensive disappointments. And we all know Magic the Gathering is not cheap. And it is exactly why the bracket system was created. And the bracket system is actually a brilliant system that needs much more love than it is getting from the community right now. Chapter 2. What timeless games know that broken games don't. Think about games that are timeless. Settlers of Catan, Flesh and Blood, Summoner Wars, and if you know it, Yu-Gi-Oh! GOAT format. If you know it, you know it. I'm taking some odd examples, but these games are timeless and they are great because of their fundamental design and how the decks are constructed and made. These games, like people have played these games for decades. And I've mentioned these games because I myself come back to these years and years and years after their release. And I'm still playing the decks that I have played years ago and I'm still having fun because the skill ceiling is super high. The general game concept, the game balancing, everything is just so good. Now, what do all of these have in common? It is not complexity. It is not depth of lore. It is not even balance in a traditional sense. It's this: short turns, constant back and forth, and decision making that runs across the entire game. Not one big decision, not one big combo turn, not just one deck where you just remember how it's played and then you play it the same every single time. No. Instead, we just simply have hundreds of small decisions, and each one is mattering. Each one is building on the last. Turns are short, but games are actually pretty long. And that is not a flaw. That is the design. Because here's the truth about joy in a social game. Joy in a social game is not an individual experience. Joy is created when every part of the table is equally engaged, when everyone is thinking, reacting, planning, when everyone feels the weight of every movement. That is when a game is actually fun for everyone. And here's the uncomfortable question. How many Commander games at bracket 3 and above actually feel like that? Chapter 3. Now I want to give you guys a little bit of a beautiful example. I want to talk about how conflict evolved throughout history. Because conflict is gaming. Conflict is especially games where you try to tear down your opponents and win the game. Okay, so we have to talk about medieval warfare first. Armies are maneuvering across fields. Cavalry is flanking. Archers are holding the line. Foot soldiers reading the push and pull of a living battlefield. Every decision matters. Every move has a counter. You can lose momentum and come back. You can read your opponent and outthink them entirely. You're already seeing where I'm going here, right? Then we have industrial warfare. There's tons of strategic decisions, logistics, positioning. The game gets larger, but the logic is the same. Every move is meaningful. Every resource matters. The best player wins, not just the player with the most resources. And when I'm saying player, I'm thinking about war generals, war commanders, war strategists. And we can apply all of that to games, which is kind of beautiful. Like I said earlier, games are war, especially Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood. All the games that are based on combat can be referenced with real war. Now, I want you to think about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You can imagine modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of like CEDH, not GOAT format, not the 2005 format. No, I mean like competitive modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! If you don't know the game, essentially every single deck is a super tedious combo that you have to either play or watch. They are drawing every combo piece, chaining effects after effects after effects, building a board so locked down, it's basically a wall. And they're having an absolute blast. It's their moment, it is their masterpiece. Every tutor, every chain, every link summon, all of it is hitting exactly the way that they are practicing it. The other player is probably already dozing off, already asleep, right? And here's the thing about Commander. The moment you introduce infinite combos, you introduce nuclear missiles. The moment you have 4, 5, or 6 tutors to pull every piece out of your deck whenever you need it, you are pointing at a missile. You're essentially pointing at the missile launch button and you say, oh, let me launch the button. Boom. And then a missile is going to fly out, which is essentially the infinite combo that you're playing. And because of the tutor, you just press the tutor button and then boom, missile is flying out. Now, the game has just stopped being a battle of wills between skilled players reading each other across the table. It is just becoming a race. A race to see who pulls the trigger first, who launches the first nuclear strike, who presses the button. And suddenly, it doesn't really matter how good of a back and forth you guys had. Yet again, that's not fun. That's not design. That's a loading screen that occasionally explodes. And a lot of people might say, hey, but what if we have some counter spells? What if we have some blue players on the table? They may just negate that thing. Yes, of course, but it's kind of cheap because you should not be relying on the blue player to save your ass. That's just not how it should be. And to answer a nuclear strike with another nuclear strike, then with another nuclear strike, that's just stupid. A lot of people might have fun with that. And me, myself, I obviously make a video to express my game design philosophy. But I do have fun with that playstyle from time to time. Not gonna lie. But I'm just making points here, okay? And in my opinion, bracket 3, 4, and 5 are all trash. Okay, it's just my opinion. Debate it with me in the comments if you are thinking differently. I'm open to every single opinion because, like I always say, even if we think our opinions are objective, a lot of the times we are fooling ourselves and we are actually being subjective, which is just normal. Chapter 4. So what actually is bracket 2? And why am I praising it like the Holy Grail? Well, there are 3 constraints. That is literally it. No infinite combos, a limited amount of tutors, and a limited amount of extra turns. Those 3 things. And before you say, that sounds like a downgrade, let me show you what it actually means and what it actually does to the game. No infinite combos means nobody wins by pressing the nuclear launch button. Nobody wins by remembering a line they practiced and executing it while everyone is watching and falling asleep. You have to actually outmaneuver your opponents, one decision at a time, over many turns. The game actually has to be won, not just executed. And yes, of course, there are many games that are just running on autopilot, but it is definitely incentivizing the players to play somewhat of a resource management game. The second thing that bracket number 2 is doing is it is having limited amount of tutors. It is meaning that you have to work with what you draw. You have to be adaptable. Your plan doesn't always come together on a curve. And that is not a problem. That is the game. That is the interesting part. Reading what you have, figuring out how to make it work, finding the line that exists in this game state. Not particularly the line that you have pre-planned for. The next ruling is no stacked extra turns. This means that everyone gets to play. Every player at the table gets their moment, gets their turns, gets to react, respond, pivot. The game isn't stolen by one player who is looping through multiple turns, while everyone is just sitting there waiting. 3 constraints make bracket 2 what it is. And what they do is remove the nukes. They are simply removing nuclear warfare. And what is left is medieval warfare. Momentum shifts. You have to time your board wipes. You have to hold your interaction for exactly the right second, grinding an opponent down incrementally, piece by piece, over turns that actually matter. Reading the politics of the table, knowing when to pivot, knowing when to push. That is magic. And that should be Commander, in my opinion. Chapter 5. High Level Bracket 2. A genius insight. Now I need to address something directly, because I know exactly what some of you guys are thinking. Some of you might be thinking, okay, so Bracket 2 just means playing a pre-con and calling it a day? Like, huh? Nope. That's not what I mean. Bracket 2 has nothing to do with how much money you are spending for the deck. It has nothing to do with how optimized your cards are, how good your mana base is, how efficient your removal package is, how tight your synergies run. Here's the insight that most people in Commander community just completely miss. The bracket system is not about individual card power. It is about conceptual balance. Read that again. Conceptual balance. What makes a deck bracket 2 or bracket 4 is not expensive cards versus cheap cards. It is game-breaking concepts. Like we already said, two-door chains, infinite combos, extra turns, yada yada yada. Essentially the nuclear weapons. That's what determines the bracket. The concepts, the nuclear weapons. Which means you can build a $3,000 bracket 2 deck, fully optimized lands, premium interaction at every mana cost, the most efficient threats your color can run, the best mana rocks that don't cross into the broken territory, and it is still bracket 2, because it simply doesn't have the nukes. I've got a Final Fantasy Commander deck, the Emmet deck, that's worth around $600. I upgraded it to the fullest with the mana base. The mana base is ridiculous. I've put in literally every single mana card that is great, except of the, 1.5k or 2k card. The one with the white border. Yeah, that's ridiculous. We don't need that. It has efficient cards, it has strong synergies, it plays fast, it plays consistent, it is pretty explosive, but still, it is bracket 2. Because I didn't put the game-breaking concepts in it. And the experience of playing it is completely different from a $400 bracket 4 deck. So, you could essentially build a deck that is $200 cheaper, or even $300 cheaper, and that is 2 brackets better than what I'm running. Not because the cards are worse, because the design is different. Here's the move for building high-level bracket 2 decks. 1 to 3 tutors, enough to find key pieces late game. Not enough to assemble your combo on turn 4 whenever you want. Maybe 1 extra turn effect if it's a genuine late game win combo, that is fine. And most importantly, a fully optimized mana base. The mana base is the key thing that is holding your deck back from being fun. If you have a bracket 2 deck, or even a precon, and you've played it against your friends or against the local play group, you might have realized that the deck is lacking in the mana base regard. And if you have a super consistent mana base, the deck is already so much more fun. Because what you're solving with a consistent mana base is the biggest bottleneck to why decks perform badly. And if you have a good mana base, the deck is going to play so much better. It is actually turning from a little slot machine, from a little gambling session, into a genuine strategic gameplay session. Just because you can play what you put in the deck. And if you can play what you put in the deck, you can build your deck around a very synergistic playstyle. You can build your deck around things that have multicolors, 1, 2, 3 colors. And you can pull off all of these tricks that you put in there. Because you just simply have the lands to allow yourself to play your deck properly. You don't need no tutors, you don't need no crazy stuff in there. You just need consistent lands. And bracket 2 with consistent lands is a great experience. Chapter 6. The problem with bracket 3. I can already read your mind. Maybe not. Maybe I've already convinced you that bracket 2 is amazing. But you might be asking, why not just play bracket 3? It seems to be in the middle ground. It seems to be cool. Everybody's playing it. Bracket 3 is the most popular bracket. That's what everyone plays once they get past the beginner level. If you're not playing bracket 3, you're probably just a casual, right? Well, we already figured out that an upgraded bracket number 2 deck is pretty good. And it's not really a beginner deck anymore. Bracket 3 is popular and bracket 3 still has infinite combos. It still has more tutors. And the moment those things come back into the room, the atomic warfare is back. It's always just around the corner, waiting to end the game. Let me ask you something honestly. Has someone at your table ever assembled an infinite token combo and just killed one player out of nowhere? Or has anyone just assembled where they are just spell slinging, and they just spell sling infinitely. Bum, 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 bum. Burst out all of that damage. And it landed straight into your face. Was that fun? Was that a moment that everyone around the table enjoyed? Hell nah. It was just a button press of a nuclear strike. And before I loop around the same concept that I've been looping around for 16 minutes already, we just leave it there and say, Bracket 3 is already introducing the things that make it socially not really fun to play and not really fun to interact with. So, if you love it, go ahead and play it. But if you want to play something that is more deep, more expressive, more great, you don't need to get into Bracket 3. You can just upgrade your Commander 2 deck. Because value is kind of like, what are we talking about? Like, oh yeah, but I don't want to stay in this bracket for beginners. Well, who cares? Commander is not played to be competitive. Commander is played to have a good day, to have some social interaction with your guys, and to just play the game that we all love. If you want to be competitive, play the damn standard rotation. What are we talking about, right? So, from the perspective of a game designer, Bracket 2, played at a high level, is the closest thing this format has to being genuinely fun, while still being very competitive at the same time. It respects everyone's time at the table, it keeps every player engaged from turn 1 to the last turn, it stretches decision making across the entire game, not just 5 turns before someone wins. It still rewards skill, like I said, it's still genuinely competitive. And most importantly, it makes sure that when the game ends, every single person had a game. Not just a person with the craziest deck. So here's my challenge. If you're building your next Commander deck, optimize the hell out of it. Get the mana base right, get the synergies tight, make it run, make it feel powerful and explosive, while staying in the second bracket. Feel free to leave your take in the comments below. I want to know which bracket you are playing, if I'm just yapping my ass off and missing a point completely. And if you want to play some WEBCAM Commander with me, with our guys, with my friends, or if you just want to yap about card games, board games, whatever, we can geek out on our Discord. The link is in the description below. Thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll see you in another one. I wish you a fantastic day.